The Lord be with you. What is in your playlist? What are those things that you are listening to or watching or even reading in digital form or otherwise to help get us through these strange times of virus and isolation? Now, I had kind of not wanted to do this particular video in this particular order. I know there are lots of things going on in our nation and in our neighborhoods that require us to think about things more deeply. And the idea of the pandemic playlist was kind of more of a distraction. Because of the times that we're living in, I didn't necessarily want to do a distraction at this point. I wanted to talk about more significant things that are going on in our nation. And I will. The next video will sort of address some things a little more critically and a little more soberly. The other thing I didn't want to do was I didn't want to get into a cycle where I predominantly talk about movies in the pandemic playlist. And I'm breaking all of the things that I said I didn't want to do, primarily because I recognize the timing is significant on this. So while I am very thankful, I have received a couple of book recommendations from people to look at, some song recommendations, and those are certainly things that I'm trying to do in my spare time. I definitely have some things that have been in my playlist that I want to talk about other than movies. But today I want to address another movie only because it's a recent release and maybe one that you guys can find certainly easier than the last one I talked about, Testament, which was an older movie and wasn't readily available on a lot of platforms. So the movie that I would like to talk about today and recommend for your pandemic playlist is the movie Soul from Pixar. Now, this movie came out on Christmas Day on Disney+. The idea was to release it in the theaters. Obviously, 2020 was a horrible year to try and release movies in the theaters. So a lot of companies and studios decided to have things go directly to video, directly to streaming online platforms. Unfortunately, Disney had already started their own streaming network with Disney+. And because Pixar is owned by Disney, that became the natural place to release this. So my family and I did watch this on Christmas Day. And I think this is a great movie to watch at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021 because it does give you a partial sense of closure, bittersweet closure, but also some optimism and some hope for the future, which in my mind makes it an outstanding movie to watch right now. Now, I have talked about Pixar in the past. I've been a little bit critical of Pixar stories. Again, not their storytelling ability. As I have said, I do think Pixar as a motion picture studio makes some of the most compelling, consistently well narrated movies in the industry. Doesn't matter live action or animated. Pixar and their crew, they're just very good storytellers. Sometimes Pixar gets a little too deep and philosophical for me, and I think creates some subtle problems underneath the surface. But that being said, there are a handful of Pixar movies that I just really enjoy. They really evoke good emotions for me. So some things to note about this particular movie. It is directed by Pete Docter, who is an alum of Pixar. So they tend to have Some of the same directors do repeat movies. This is Doctor's fourth movie with Pixar. And Soul shares a lot of similarities with Inside Out, which he also directed. It has a lot of the same stylistic and sort of set design pieces that are very similar, very reminiscent of Inside Out. Inside Out is not one of my favorite Pixar movies. I think it's very good. But I did get a chance to see that movie this summer at the drive-in. They were playing a bunch of older movies at the drive-in. It was outdoors. It was a good opportunity for people to see some movies. I saw that one, interestingly, play with Empire Strikes Back. And my 6-year-old, who was 5 at the time, said to me a third of the way through the movie, "Where'd the little girl go?" Which, again, if you don't know anything about Inside Out, it's about the emotions in her struggling to take control and to navigate her life. And I realized this was just really confusing for children. Inside Out and Soul do share that bond. Soul isn't, for me, a kid's movie. It is much more a movie for adults. It is so profound, so philosophical. Now, there are some nice gags in there, some nice jokes, some nice comedic relief moments that I think are entertaining for kids. But the underlying message and the profound effect that it has will be upon people who have lived life for a long time, who have seen hurt and pain and disappointment and are renewed to hope again. So the basic idea is a man who is an aspiring jazz musician dies rather unexpectedly right as his life is just beginning to click and it's just beginning to fulfill his dreams. And the majority of the movie takes place in kind of the afterlife, this weird in-between stage. You know, if you have a difficult time with theology outside of the Bible, this movie has a lot of quirks to it. I did think they made some very neutral statements and some statements that were both entertaining and thought-provoking as far as what it means to have to go into the great beyond, what the great before is, which is not a Christian idea, but still something very interesting to think about, and just sort of the setup pieces that allow the main character to have to navigate a world beyond ours while he's still striving to get back to the world on earth so that he can try and make something of his life. That pairs him with a soul that has chosen not to go to earth. And that soul has been mentored by so many famous people and just couldn't get interested. To them, earth was a sad place. Earth was an unsatisfactory place. Why would someone want to live a life? And it's through this relationship and sort of their exploits outside of this earthly realm and then back on this earthly realm that propel the plot forward and start to make the characters and us as audience members have to really start grappling with, what do we think the purpose of life is? What makes it meaningful to us? Two of my favorite scenes in the movie are, one takes place in a barber's chair. And when the main character in sort of an out-of-body experience is having a conversation with the person who's been cutting his hair for years, he just starts to ask personal questions. And the barber just opens up to him. And at the end says, the guy says to the barber, why why did I never know these things about you? And the barber says, because you've never asked. Which is a good reminder and a poignant thing that so many of us have interactions every day and we don't really take them to the next level. And that is a shame in this life. The other part that is really important for me is at the end of the movie, just before the end of the movie, there is an incredible montage scene that's all silent as the main character starts to think through those things in life that have just made it enjoyable. And it isn't the big things. It's the simple things, a good piece of pie, seeing the sunlight in the morning, being with your loved one as they're teaching you music or something about the world, seeing the leaves change on the trees. It is just one of those films, maybe more so because of the timing, that reminds you, yes, there are lots of bad things about life, lots of scary things, lots of frustrating things, lots of disappointing things. But there are also some incredible opportunities, and you can't cleanly separate the two. You have no guarantees. The best you can do is choose to live a good life. And sometimes just living and choosing to live in and of itself is good. So again, that's going to be my recommendation. I don't want to give too much information because you can access this through Disney Plus. I'm sure, we have Disney Plus through one of our family members. So I'm not sure how it works. If you don't have it, I'm assuming that you can still order just the movie and watch just the movie, maybe do a trial of Disney Plus. But Soul is definitely worth watching. It will provoke a lot of questions in you and probably stir a lot of emotions. Again, that's what Pixar is good at. They give us emotional, visceral responses to their stories that they tell. Not a perfect film, not a flawless film, and certainly has a lot of interesting anecdotes about what the afterlife is, or maybe some ways to think about it. But check it out. I would recommend it. And let me know sort of in the comments below. We're trying to keep this as a virtual community where we can interact with one another, whether in the comments below on YouTube or on our Facebook page if you're watching it through Zion's Facebook page. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what moments stood out to you. Let me know what made you laugh, what made you cry. And let me know if you have any other recommendations. We are going to try to continue using art as a lens to see life in new and interesting ways, to encourage one another in these very dark times, and to share these things with others. So by all means, if this was beneficial for you or somebody that you think it would benefit them, share it, share the link, click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, do all of those weird virtual things, and we will try to continue to be a community together, a community of love and support. So in these days of ongoing pandemic, may the peace of God be with you. Amen.